NVIDIA's big AI conference, GTC, beginning on Monday. Investors are clamoring for the latest news and product announcements that's going to come from the AI darling. NVIDIA shares have been on a roller coaster this week, are up though 70% since the start of the year. So what's to expect from the big event next week? Let's bring in Stacy Rasgon, Bernstein's managing director and senior analyst. Stacy, it's great to have you here. So there certainly is a lot of hype heading in to the big event on Monday. What are you expecting and how big of a catalyst?
Yeah, so there's going to be a lot there. I mean, it's they haven't held one of these events in person in 4 years. And the last one they held it in person, certainly AI was not nearly as exciting and mainstream as I think it is today. So there is a lot of expectations going into this. The biggest piece of, I guess, incremental information that we're all looking for is details on NVIDIA's next generation products. The code name is Blackwell. The product's called the B100. And people are waiting to see, how much better is it than the current stuff? Like, what is the timeline? People want to see, how big of an opportunity do they think overall, like their market can give them over the next several years. And in general, there is the hype is certainly there, right? I mean, you even mentioned the stocks selling off this week. I mean, there are fears that the hype is so much it just can't live up to it. Like, people are worried about a sell the news kind of event. And I'd say with these events in the past, we've seen both. I've seen takes where it was a sell the news, and I've seen other ones where I think in 2017 the stock was up 30% like coming out of this meeting. So it's kind of been all over the place. I will say, long story short, though, it's going to be a very exciting event. I think there's going to be lots of details on this, as well as all the other parts of their businesses. Everybody who cares about AI in the slightest is going to be there. I'll be there in person. I'm really looking forward to it. It should be a lot of fun.
It's so interesting that you mentioned the risk of this being a potential sell the news event in the case that they don't come out with the Goldilocks type of tenor that's really needed to get the stock potentially to $1,000. I mean, I think back to that old, Nike ad where they did the whole Kobe system thing, success at success at success. That's essentially what NVIDIA has been experiencing. So is this the event that can get them to $1,000 a share if they say the right thing?
I mean, look, I don't think anybody's going to walk out of this event feeling less bullish on AI and NVIDIA's opportunity than they felt going in, right? That's clear. I fully expect them to sound very, very positive. I fully expect them to have very good things to say about their product roadmap and everything else that they're playing in. Look, the stock's up 70% year to date. It tripled last year, and it's consolidated a little bit. I have no problem believing, though, that the stock can get to those kinds of levels, regardless of what happens after next week. So we'll see. But in long story short, like I said, nobody's going to walk out of these meetings feeling less positive about the stock and the company, I think, than they felt going into.
Stacy, you have a price target of $1,000 for the stock. Do you think that at $1,000 we see this rumored split take place? And what does that do, at least at a psychological level, if we do see a split?
They did a split, I don't know, it was a couple of years back. I think I can't even remember. The stock was, I don't remember, $600, maybe $400, I can't remember. But they did one before. They sort of attributed it back then to make it easier, on the employees. Some people will look at splits as making it easier for retail to buy. I don't think it's that important. I mean, people can buy fractional shares today. It's more psychological than anything else.
Yeah.
I don't read that much into it. I actually don't care if they split the stock or not. And I have no idea if it's $1,000, if they'll feel like splitting it or not. It doesn't, in my mind, doesn't matter that much. I mean, but look, I'm not one of the investors playing this thing on Reddit either. So I don't know.
Yeah, Stacy, we did a quick Google search here. The 4-for-1 split, what most recent was back in 2021. Let's talk about that upside, because clearly you're a bull on NVIDIA right now. There's lots to talk about. What is even going to stop this, if anything can stop it, before it gets to $3 trillion? What do you think that timeline looks like?
Well, so I think it's important to think about the opportunity that's in front of them. And remember, we are very, very early in the days of generative AI and large language models and everything else. And we've done the math on this. You can look at the amount of computing power that is required even to serve up the stuff that's already happening, and it is massive, right? And we're just scratching the surface on what can be done with this, and we're still very early on in the days of developing business models. Jensen has already also talked about a broader trend toward accelerated computing, that the historical drivers of efficiency in the world's data centers, whether it was Moore's law or the shift from mainframes to standard x86 or virtualization or the move to the cloud or all that stuff, it's all done. You have to do something else if you want to keep driving efficiency, and this sort of heterogeneous acceleration, offloading workloads to other types of silicon at much higher efficiencies is still going on. And Jensen has talked about, there's $1 trillion of installed data center infrastructure out there that is not accelerated, that over time will be. They actually think that number goes to 2 trillion. And if you sort of run through the math of what that could mean for how big this could get over the next, call it 5 years or 10 years, I am convinced that in 5 years or 10 years, we will be talking about numbers for these guys that are materially higher than what we are talking about today. If you look at the current valuation, even on today's numbers, and the numbers are probably still headed higher, frankly, it's not that expensive. It's in the mid 30s, like forward price to forward earnings. It is the cheapest of all the AI stocks. And it's probably got the best opportunity and product roadmap and runway in front of them of all of them. So again, I don't know when it hits 3 trillion, who knows, but I have no problem believing that as we go forward over time, it won't be a straight line, I'm sure, but over time, I think we'll be talking about numbers and opportunities that are quite a bit bigger than even now what we're talking about today.
Just lastly, while we've got you, Stacy, how does NVIDIA avoid becoming a political pawn this election season?
Because they already are, probably, right? I mean, we've looked at, clearly have been sanctions and export controls that have been put on their ability to sell in China. And at the current moment, they really can't sell very much of anything into China today. Like that's been cut off. They're developing new products that will come in below some of the performance thresholds and enable them to sell. But I mean, clearly already their opportunity, unfortunately, in China is going to be a lot lower than it would have been otherwise. And I mean, you got to play the game by whatever the rules are. They'll have to do that. And I think if you think a little more generally, AI, I think, is becoming much more of a sovereign effort. It is a national security issue, I think, for any country. The companies actually talked about, and we've actually started to see various countries in the world start to talk about building their own AI infrastructure and AI clouds. And that is something that I think actually will be a positive for them. Like you'll have sovereign entities that can buy this stuff and deploy this stuff. But clearly, it's already a national security issue. I mean, that's not new. It's already here.
Stacy Rasgon, who is the Bernstein Managing Director and Senior Analyst, talking all things NVIDIA. We know you'll be at the conference, yeah?
I'll be there, you bet.
All right, excellent. We expect some live tweeting or Xing or posting, whatever we're calling it these days. Thanks so much, Stacy.